Hi, Danny Lynn here, and today we're here with Greg, and he's a full-time investor here in Austin, and I wanted to interview him because he brings a lot to the table in regards to his experience with Phill and Shanoa, his training and what's happened, and especially his first deal. It was a big story that I wanted you to hear, so I'm going to start off by asking you, can you tell us a little bit about your story, how you met Phill and Shanoa, and the Revolution training, and how that helped you?
Certainly. Well, I'm a land developer by early training. That was a family business, and I did that for probably a dozen years, and we developed a lot of land up in Dallas. And then I went off for a while and got into high tech and spent quite a few years writing software with the idea that someday I would probably come back and do some stuff in real estate. And I've been watching the economy, watching this economic cycle build up, and I kind of had a feeling since we went through the 80s, I knew what was going to happen. I knew there were going to be great buying opportunities, so I was timing my re-entrance to real estate.
Right.
And when I decided to get back in, it wasn't long before I met Phill at a investor club meeting. And so I took his real estate training class here in Austin.
Okay.
I realized that rehabbing single-family houses, kind of like this one, was a new business for us. Even though we were in real estate, we had not done this business.
Right.
And I had a lot of experience as a developer, but I wanted to meet someone who was actually doing the house rehab business. I wanted somebody who was actually out on the street, you know, in the houses, you know, seeing what worked and what didn't.
Yep.
On a daily basis, so that they could really show me based on their direct experience. And that's, so I met Phill, I took his class. It was probably a good year and a half ago now.
Okay.
And then, you know, I looked at a number of deals, like all of his students do.
Yes.
And within about 60 days, you know, found a good deal. It was a house that had been abandoned, and the owner needed to sell. They wanted to sell for cash. They had some private debts that they needed to pay off and were getting a lot of pressure.
Okay.
So they saw the advertisement on Craigslist from the wholesaler and saw the offer and said, yeah, we'll take that offer. So we ended up buying the house for a super low price. We got it for $33,000.
Wow.
And that was an awesome deal. It was a 1,378 square foot house. And the key to that deal was that even though the house itself, it was in horrible shape. It was full of junk. It was torn up in a lot of ways. It had been involved, as you know, in a lot of you know, like criminal activity previously.
Okay. The
police had raided it. They had finally just you know, boarded the place up.
Right.
And so the house looked pretty scary. But the key was that structurally it was still in very good shape.
Okay.
It just looked scary. And that scared off a lot of investors.
Sure.
So when we went into the deal, you know, the first big part of the deal was we literally just cleaned it up. We just hauled stuff into dumpsters. It took like 2 big dumpsters just to haul junk in. There was junk in the yard and the house. And once we got it cleaned up, immediately it started looking much, much better.
Okay.
So we got the place cleaned up. We did, you know, essentially a prehab on the house. It wasn't even a full rehab.
Okay.
You know, we fixed sheetrock, we repainted, we put in a new bathtub that had a hole in it. You know, just did a few spot repairs that needed it. You know, just made it just FHA loanable.
Right.
Got it cleaned up, got it brightened up. Just, you know, change of cover scheme made a massive difference in the house. We did some landscaping up front.
Right.
The yard had been completely bare. We put in grass, and it was, you know, the nicest house in that whole section of East Austin in terms of landscaping.
Wow.
And it popped, you know. And so we stuck a FSBO sign out in the front yard, and, you know, immediately got lots of interest, and had 3 bidders bidding up the price before we even finished the project.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
I didn't even know that part of the story.
So,
Okay.
Oh yes, it was
Okay.
great, and
Wow.
we ended up selling the house for $110,000, having bought it for $33,000.
Wow.
Price was the key motivator for those buyers. There's always a population of buyers out in the marketplace that can only afford the very, very most affordable thing in a given area.
Right.
So these were all buyers that said, and they were highly motivated, because if they didn't buy my house, there was nothing else they could afford
Right.
in that area. So it turned out to be a great deal for everybody, and we were very happy with the deal. We ended up making a profit of $30,000 in total.
That was your first deal.
That was my first house rehab deal. Yes.
House rehab, that's right.
Yep.
That's fantastic. Good
So
stuff.
It was fun. It
Yeah.
was fun. We enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I think that's important for you guys to take note from Greg's story here, is about prehabs. It's something that Phill talks about, and it's a very important lesson that a lot of investors, they just don't take advantage of the knowledge that again, you don't have to fix everything, right? So,
Oh, absolutely.
What was the things that you did fix in the house as opposed to not fixing?
Oh, we fixed some flooring. We put some carpet in a back room that had a lot of tile that was broken. Interestingly enough, one thing we did not fix, we pulled up old carpet throughout most of the house and found there was beautiful wood floor underneath.
Oh.
Now, beautiful wood floor, the finish was not beautiful. I mean, it was scarred up and water stained in places. And interestingly, I thought, well, surely we're going to have to sand down and refinish that floor. And Phil kept saying, no, you don't need to worry about it. Trust me.
Right.
And I was like, holy cow, how can you possibly sell a house that has a floor this ugly? And they said, trust me. And sure enough, it was amazing because we would get comments on, like some buyers said, well, we want central HVAC put in the house. We'd like a new roof put on the house. Gosh, this is an old house. We'd love for all the electrical to be replaced. And we said, no, it's an old house. If you want to buy an old house, this is what you get, but we're not going to spend a bunch of money and drive up the price.
Right.
But interestingly enough, even the most hard-nosed realtors and buyers came through and they'd look at the floor and say, well, looks good. So
amazing.
In that price range, I mean, it was
Yep.
such an affordable house. I think the mentality of those buyers is, there's a lot of kind of little projects the owner can do for themselves and beautify their own house over the next several years. But this was a very professional young couple just getting started in life, didn't have a lot of money, but had a lot of enthusiasm and loved that part of East Austin.
Yep.
And so to them, it's like that was a perfect opportunity. There was a house that there was a lot left for them to fix up and
Right.
add their own personality to. But again, that key feature was they needed the price.
What do you think from the Revolution training and everything that you've learned from Phill and Shanoa, what do you think is the most valuable thing that you've learned and taken and incorporated into your business?
I'd have to say, I mean, I learned a lot of fantastic things and a lot of very good technical details about the business, but probably the biggest revelation for me was the marketing aspect of it. As a land developer, we never really had to mass market to anybody. We always knew pretty much who our likely customers were going to be to buy lots from us.
Right.
The house rehabbing business is very different because you're dealing with the buying and selling public, and there are lots of non-real estate professionals who buy and sell houses every single day.
Right.
And so it was interesting to learn about how I had to market to find the motivated sellers and the motivated buyers.
Sure.
So that was very good, and I really appreciated Phil's extensive background in marketing, and he's got a very good mind for many of the creative things that can be done to really find those motivated sellers without having to spend any more time than you absolutely have to.
I agree.
So that was extremely valuable, and I think that's something that it's very hard to get from anybody else.
I agree, absolutely. Tell us the story about that you just told me about the banker.
Oh yes, that was an interesting story, and it was not too long after I had met Phil, and of course you're always kind of going through your mind, like I said, I wanted someone who was actually doing the business, and whenever you're taking real estate training from someone, there's always kind of this question of, how much do they actually know the real estate business and how much are they just in the education business?
Right.
And so it's kind of one of those, Phil seems awfully real and genuine, but I wasn't quite positive, and so I was opening up a bank account one day at a major bank here in town, and the guy that was opening the account for me said, oh, hey, here's our regional branch manager walking through. I'd like you to meet Greg Baker. And we met, and we were talking. I said, well, I'm dealing with a guy here in town named Phill Grove, and he's a real estate investor, and I'm learning some stuff from him about the house business. And the guy said, oh my gosh, Phill Grove, he's my best customer. And I said, well, there's a testimonial right there that I don't think I can get anywhere else.
You're absolutely right.
And that it turned out to be absolutely right. That Phill and Shanoa, one of the great things about working with them is that they are in the business day in, day out. They rehab houses. They do house deals. They don't just sit there and teach classes. They don't teach from theory. They teach from what they've learned and out on the streets every day.
Yep.
And that's great because it's a constantly shifting business. Everything from state and federal regulations that change, the tempo of the market changes. A neighborhood that was hot last year is just dying on the vine this year.
Exactly.
And if you're not working with people that are actually out there in the trenches, they can't keep you up to date. And so that's been a very valuable part, not only of the training, but obviously of the ongoing relationship that I've been able to maintain with Phill and Shanoa, which is another great aspect of their program is you really get, you know, a partner for life in a sense. So,
Yes.
so that's always been valuable, and you know, I've got great relationships with folks like you guys
Yes.
too. So, and that's been
I agree.
really a you know, a huge booster to my business is to have those contacts.
Yes, I agree. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
It's a pleasure.
Look forward to talking to you again tomorrow. Thanks. Bye.